All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 26th video session. We are going to be brainstorming with Saja Othman, one of the founders of Valve. But before we get started, just a little bit about video sessions. The purpose of video sessions is to come together as an international community to make a positive social change. But before we get started, let's do some brief introductions of everyone on this call. I'm Shivani, one of the co-founders of Impaction, and I'm based in Chicago, Illinois. Tanvi, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Tanvi. I'm the product manager with Impaction, and I'm based in Boston.
Awesome. Roger, do you want to go next?
I'm Roger, co-founder of IdeaTrack. I am based in Boston as well.
Great. Sukanya, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Sukana, one of the co-founders of Impaction. I'm currently based in Texas.
Awesome. And I believe someone else has joined. Can I don't know, Saja, do you know? I don't see a name on the call.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is my partner. She's Siwar.
Oh, great. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Siwar.
Siwad? Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, Siwad. Welcome to the call. We started recording the call, and we're going forward and helping solve this challenge for you and your co-founder. But yeah, just welcome. Thank you very much for being here. And Saja, I'll do like a brief introduction of what y'all do at Valve, and then you can briefly introduce yourself as well.
Great.
Let me share my screen. So ultimately, Valve is a design studio that focuses on utilizing design process and methods to create solutions that support and enrich the cultural narrative of the Arab area, starting from the local community. So it's very grassroots. They have this card game called Shaddeh, and ultimately this depicts the social and the political structure in the Jordan area. It's a way to educate kids and anyone who is playing the game about the power roles within Jordan. So these are some of this is a breakdown of the original playing cards, and we can go into a little bit of a background with what each card typically represents, but everything is spread out between different positions that you have in society. So peasants in agriculture, ultimately it's a part of the history of the working class. These cards depict more of the religious aspect in Jordan society. The military have a strong part in Jordan society as well, and have strong connections in most of the aspects of the political society. And then the higher circles of society are the last remaining segment within this background. So Saja also said that this is still in the midst of a draft, but ultimately we just wanted to provide more of a guide and a background on what Valve is working on. But Saja, do you and your co-founder want to give more of a description of what y'all are doing in your own words?
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for being here and helping out. This means a lot to us, and you're gonna be a great help. We're still a startup. We've only been working officially for a year, and this is one of our earliest projects that started from Siwar's graduation project in university. We were studying the effects of designing actual products for the actual people and with an understanding of the audience in mind. And while we were digging at how we can take something that's very familiar to the people and work with it to create an actual social impact through understanding of that audience, we stumbled upon cards because they're a huge part of like the youth culture in Jordan. We have cafes dedicated to them. People go out to play in groups. Usually it's like four people groups and stuff like that. And it's a very active part of what the youth does in Jordan. And it's very connected to unemployment because when youth are like have a lot of free time on their hands, they spend most of it out doing these kinds of activities. So we were trying to find a way to connect this product to the actual problem of employment and social structures and how that affects the youth in Jordan in general. So we dug in the history of the cards and realized that they were actually multi-layered and had a lot of social and political background to them from the start that with time lost their meaning and relevancy. So we took them in for families which represent the pillars of like a society, culture, agriculture, and like peasants and the working class, the higher class which owns the money and the land, and the religion and its effects, and the military and their connections and effect as well, which plays a lot of common like aspects in Jordan's modern society. And we were trying to see what can be done, and we did a lot of experiments with youth themselves and with students to see how we can expand on this and came up with this game. Now the problem is we're in the final phases of designing the actual game, which comes from the cards, a guide, and the comic books this with a background. But we have a problem with balancing how we can keep this affordable and relevant to the youth because they're our audience, while at the same time keeping it sustainable on the long run. And that's one of our main challenges. We want to reach these people and make them, why would they switch from the normal cards to these cards? That's like one of the main problems we're facing in getting to them and getting them to adopt this product. And the other problem we're facing is related to like the financials of keeping this affordable to the youth themselves. And we'd really appreciate any advice or input anyone has on the whole of the project as well. I'll leave that to you. And if I didn't make sense anywhere, or if there is anything that needs more expanding, just let me know.
No, thank you, Saja. And do you have anything to add? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. One more time, can you say that?
You are.
You are, yeah. Can you please, do you have anything to add?
She covers everything, I think. So yeah, it's your role.
Great. Okay, so the first aspect of the challenge that Valve needs help on is finding ways to reach and engage the youth, right? So number one, how to keep the cards affordable and how to keep them relevant for the youth. And like essentially, as they stated before, like they essentially wanted to crowdfund. So I guess the first line of question is how do we engage the general public to take up Valve cards rather than normal playing cards? And I'll leave the floor open to anyone to answer. I think, well, first off,
Can I add something?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and another part of the problem with crowdfunding is that people in Jordan don't have that much of crowdfunding culture in the start. Like we don't engage in crowdfunding here yet. It's still a bit of a foreign concept, and people can't see the value for what they're paying for upfront. So even the youth who might be actually engaged and interested, we need to find a workaround instead of crowdfunding because they would not pay upfront and then like wait on the product. Now the product is mostly printing, so it might not be a very long period of waiting, but it's still a bit of a challenge because of the mentality around crowdfunding is still not that up to date with the global cultures.
Yeah, and you're facing double the challenge because you're talking about maybe a contentious issue in Jordan as well with the cards.
How many units are available right now? Units in terms of decks of cards have you produced, and how many are in circulation?
We're still in a prototyping phase. We have like the prototype only. We haven't started production.
When it comes to starting production, is that plan in place already, or do you still need to work out those logistics?
We have half the plan in place. That's why you were asking about how. What I was saying is we kind of had a plan, but the problem was with how high the budget would be for the first batch because of mass production needs and because we need distribution. We already have a bit of an idea about the logistics because we, as I said before, we have cafes designated to these things. So we have distribution points figured out. We have kind of the access points figured out. The problem would be with how we can like minimize the production budget, the first one, to make more sense to the youth, because if the production budget is high, the cost is gonna like the price is gonna be high, and we're talking about youth, so it's not doesn't make much sense.
So I have an idea, but I want to make sure I'm not going to say something you've already thought. Like, what's your plan right now?
Okay, so at the moment, what we had in mind was we go with something related to a kind of a pre-order kind of thing, where we work around to understand our numbers and the demand and make partnerships with the cafes and distribution points. And then according to that, we go with the first batch of production. And we want to keep the price between around 5 JDs, which is, I guess, something close to $7, $8. But the problem remains that because of the comic and the guide, which are extra to normal cards, the production cost can be a bit higher than normal cards. So if the youth are not already invested in buying these, the cost is not going to make much sense, the gap in cost. So that's one of the problems. The other one is, like, I don't want this to become a specialty playing card deck, where it's an artistic version or something that's more of a collector version. I want it to be something that's accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, right. So how much money is available for marketing right now? You don't have to give like an exact number, but I mean, is there money available to market this? Because it doesn't make sense to print unless you can market it like broadly and generally. And I'm saying this because of just a little idea that I had. If you've already got that figured out, my idea is stupid. But if so, do you have money to market if you were to do a first run?
If we had the printing cost, we can handle the marketing. Yes, we can budget it because we already are a design studio. We can handle most of creating the marketing content, and we can handle most of the marketing budget itself. The problem remains with the production budget.
Okay. So then the idea that I was thinking, so the way a lot of early video games run is they'll do very limited servers with very limited group of alpha users who just kind of play for fun. And then they start doing tournaments where they fund a prize. So then the thought was just get like 1 or 2 decks printed on like crappy pieces of paper, go into a cafe and just start playing, try to get like 15 people going, and then host very small level tournaments and just see if it picks up.
Okay, we kind of had something that connects very well. We had a kind of campaign for the marketing campaign that works very well with this. We were thinking about, like, here there's a lot of culture about who always loses and who's always the winner and who's always the one who, like, in a certain game gets that certain card. And that's a very common terminology with the youth. And we were thinking of having a pre-production campaign where it's about find us the best player, find us the best guy who does this thing, or find us the guy who always loses this thing. So if we connect this to that idea, that might actually be interesting. I think.
It's just that it's essentially free. It's just essentially free to get 5 people sitting in a cafe playing with a deck that you printed on regular pieces of paper, and then hopefully somebody comes over and says, "What are you guys doing?" and then just and then blast all that out on Instagram and TikTok. I'm done.
Thank you.
No, but Roger brings up a good point, and I'm trying to figure out. So you have to first start with the education, right? You have to first start with the education component. Jacob, still a lot of background noise. You have to start with the education component, right? So, ultimately, especially when you're dealing with youth, what age group are you specifically targeting for youth?
Commonly in Jordan, people around between 16 to maybe 30 are the ones who play and go and attend these events and play in cafes.
Okay.
For us, it's more like around 17 to like 25 تقريبا. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
estimate.
Yeah.
Because 17 is about to go into university, and there is a lot of like under like current for the university, because WASTA interferes in university acceptance. It interferes like with people who get into military and who get into university and who get into different kinds of opportunities. So that's a good age to kind of get them out. And up to 25 because they're leaving university and college and going into employment where they also encounter the same current. So that's like the focus point for us.
Okay. And in these cards, you're only highlighting the political system, right? You're not trying to orient a specific agenda or anything, right?
We're trying more. The main concept of the game is we want the people to, through the game, understand how this WASTA system works,
Yeah.
and then realize that when you work against it or when you take a step against it, because there's partnerships in the game. So
Yeah.
when you take a partnership against the system instead of with the system, and how that might like lead to a better result for the whole instead of the one.
Okay.
So we're trying to like implement or plant this kind of awareness in the mentality of the people, and hopefully start a better education around the topic and a better awareness of how people actually use these things.
Okay. And do you have a specific outcome outside of education? Like, do you want to send policies over to like the Jordanian government, or do you want to host like social movements or anything like that?
The tricky thing here, and I don't know if it's gonna make much sense outside of the actual context we're living, is that everyone agrees that they're against WASPA. Like everyone publicly talks that this is bad, we don't want this, and everyone is against it. So the main problem is actually in the subconscious of the people, because while they publicly all disagree with it, they all also engage in it in some kind of degree. So I think we're in a phase where it's not exactly about policies, because policies already say that this is a crime and you shouldn't do it and you should report it and we should all fight it. But that's just on the surface. What's under the surface is a whole network of nothing, corruption, to be honest, where it's morely people just thinking that this one doesn't matter.
Yeah.
this one doesn't count, this is a small task, it's okay. So that's why we think we're more in need of a deeper understanding of the effects, where people have to come to face with why this is actually bad and maybe like understand the ripple effects of it. I don't know if I'm making enough sense. It's so yeah, because the culture itself is I'm just saying the culture itself is conflicted. It makes no sense like in a straight way.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, if the second you start explaining this to people is the second it's crushed and censored, like immediately. Like you can't like explain or have any background to it whatsoever when you're releasing it, which is just to harp back to my original. Like if you just have people start playing it with zero analysis or description of what the game is doing, I mean that's really the only way it would grow there. And then the reason to use the social media is so that people who are outside of Jordan will then pick up on it, because this isn't going to happen inside Jordan. It doesn't sound like. It sounds like you're like, hey, this is just a fun game to play. And then before people know it, they're like, oh wait, I'm subverting a foreign government, type thing.
here the main problem is again the policies and the government and everyone is publicly against it. Everyone says we're fighting it. Everyone is fighting it. Everyone and everyone is using it. So that's where it makes like absolutely no sense on paper, but it's literally what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Oh man, like this is hard because you want it to be within your country. You want to be able to get people empowered within your country to start thinking differently about Wasta, but the entire system is based off of Wasta. Like my family's in India and we have our own like version of Wasta, right? Whether it's education systems, whether it's job favoritism, whether it's so deeply ingrained into the culture that trying to combat the issue, what can only happen through it has to start with education. So I think it has to start definitely with the youth. Um, so having at least making a game out of it, which is you gamified it from the very beginning, right? So like Roger was suggesting, hosting more of these tournaments for youth to participate in, getting the youth to start challenging some of the systems that are in place, especially with their parents and grandparents. But what's interesting is that you have two different socioeconomic standards for the youth too, right? The ones that benefit from Wasta and the ones that don't. And usually the people who don't benefit from Wasta, you won't hear, like they won't be as easily heard from the people who do benefit from Wasta, because those are the ones that have the power. And it takes one person from a position of power to help the people who don't have power. So finding those gems is going to be very important for you. So you have to find quote unquote ambassadors within like the people who do benefit from WASTA to help market and be an advocate for your campaign. It has to lean one side more than the other, at least initially. So there's credibility from that aspect. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Um, and then crowdfunding, I don't think you're right. I don't think it's the right way of going about doing this because especially if you're starting with the people who are benefiting from WASTA, they're already helping you do your job and promoting your idea. But also getting them to, if you get them to believe in your idea enough, then you can get at least 4 or 5 people that can help fund the entire thing. And then you may be able to do a crowdfunding campaign towards the end that says that, hey, you know, these 5 people that benefit from the WASTA system believe in what we're doing in the first place, and they want you to hop on board to help more people who aren't benefiting from the WASTA system. So you can craft your narrative and saying that, you know what, even the people that benefit are the ones that recognize this is a problem and want to help out. So that's when you have at least 5 people onboarded, that's when you might be able to do a crowdfunding campaign, but you should do that in segments so that you should be able to, you should start small in terms of like at least testing the crowdfunding campaign a little bit before you launch like a huge initiative. I said a lot. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I do. I'll just talk again. Okay, so I'm hung up on the explaining the vision aspect of it because it just seems like that's immediately shooting yourself in the foot. Is that correct? Like you can't go out and explain like, oh yeah, we're trying to explain to people how the system works. You can't do that, right? Or you can do that.
Like I'd say it's 50-50. We can, if we say it and they know what this is about, they're gonna lose interest. It needs to be done in a more of a, I'd say more of a sarcastic way, where you're taking a commentary on the situation and it's more of a, okay, let's play this and let's laugh about it, let's talk about it. And I think the inner system of the game does the other side, where it's telling people how wrong this is in application. But we can't go and be more like preachy or informative about this. They're gonna absolutely reject us.
Right. So how many people? So you printed probably one deck, right? Okay.
Yeah.
How many people can actually play this game right now? Can somebody sit down in a circle right now and play this game?
For so far, we've tested it like with maybe 3 or 4 sessions. Each session was 4 people or 4 plus, and so far everyone who's tested it has actually like either helped shape parts of it, and they've all been super interested. We get people all the time asking us when this is gonna be released, when can we start talking to our friends about it, we want to start playing it. So we've got enough of a base right now.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying with the tournament is like this is just a business development problem. I think going for the larger fundraising and trying to fund a larger scale release is you're way too early for that. I'm going back. I'm loving just going to a cafe. All right, call a bunch of businesses and say, hey, would you like to put up a $300 prize for this thing, and we'll put your big name over like, hey, this tournament presented by who? Who cares what the tournament is, right? It could be a throwing rocks against the wall tournament. And then, but there's money because you got somebody to give you $500 to put their name on it. You just do that in a cafe, and like there's all your buzz. Then you just start rolling, all right? And it's like hitting rocks against each other trying to get a spark. Just keep doing these until you go viral on Instagram or something with posting the pictures of it. Then people will be calling you up for pre-orders, and then you say, all right, why don't you give me $10 and I'll send you the thing. And now you've essentially done the crowdfunding yourself. But going on the platforms, I think won't work because you have to explain what you're doing, which you can't do. But yeah, if there's 4 of you playing, just go find some business to give you $400. Slap on make a sign, sit in a table. Hey, it's a tournament today. Who's gonna know the difference? It sounds like you gotta get guerrilla with this, which is the most fun that there is. All right, I'm done.
I actually agree, but I'd like to know if you have suggestions to what kind of businesses would be a smart choice for like the partnering with this.
Like local businesses. Oh, hey, Jim's printing shop, or I don't know, or is there any good like food in the area? Does anybody make? I don't know what's the good food that sits around the corner. Like a falafel, or help me out. I don't know Jordanian food. I'm sorry.
Falafel is fine. Falafel is fine.
All right, like Jim makes the best falafels. Hey Jim, give us $500. We'll put your name on this big sign, and we're gonna sit and play this tournament, and we'll just be out in public. And she'll be like, oh, this is great. You'll sell a bunch of falafel to people walking by. You just kind of hustle falafel for them. While it gets a little bit of cash in, or it's just not even about the cash, it's the buzz that there's a tournament, and then do that every weekend. People will show up for money, and they'll learn to play the game if there's a $20 cash prize involved. And you just keep banging those rocks against each other until it lights the flint. So it might take 10, 20 tries of doing this to get the thing going, but that's like zero cost. You just need one deck, I guess, or 3 or 4 decks that you can print on paper. Teach 20 people how to do it, and then just compete, the 20 of you each week or whatever it is, until it blows up or the government figures out what you're doing, comes to get you, which is probably the best marketing there is. Hey, look at Ngoc Trinh in Vietnam. She wore that dress to Cannes, and her government fined her like $2 million because it was showing too much leg or something. Boom, she's like huge right now. So get the government to reprimand you, and there you go. You are marketed, and somebody will give you money.
Yeah, that's interesting. One question that I had. So you would bring in money for that local restaurant or cafe or whatever it is, and they'll bring you buzz. Make sure that you do cap it, especially if you have cap the amount of participants, especially if you have a limited deck of cards. Or if you don't, they can still be watching the game, but you have to make sure that you structure that out very cleanly so it's not like a total it's not totally crazy, and that that like people keep coming back week after week. That's just to be very well organized, but it can work. I think Roger's idea is really good. So ultimately, in terms of adoption, though, like the question is, how can we convince people to switch their normal cards into introducing these cards into the game? Is tournaments and cafes, yes, that can be the first step, but what's the change? What's the trend? Like, how can we change that mindset?
I have a question here for you. How different is this card game than from the traditional ones? Or like, how much time will it take for someone to learn this new card game?
Oh, yes. First thing about the cards themselves, we updated the cards so they're more relevant to the actual culture and people. They have symbolisms of like things that are related to each subject, or like for agriculture, for money, for military, and they're more like rooted in the Arab and Jordanian culture. So we think that's one of the small upgrades that were necessary for this game. The second thing is, with our testing so far, the game is not, it's not hard. It's very different from normal games because it's based on the idea of having these kind of wastas or like superpowers and using them. But as a workflow, it's not that hard to pick up. Like, we've played with a few different groups, and usually within the second game, they've kind of started adding their own, and like being able to play it and kind of figuring out that maybe can be done this way, maybe I can cheat this way, and I think it's not that hard. It should be easy to pick up.
Oh, okay. So in that case, have you done some sort of analysis to see who your early adopters would be out of the age range that you said before?
So far, we've had the most success with the younger audience, like 17, 18. They seem to be more interested in the idea of the game being new and them being able to actually participate in helping shape the game. I think that's for them. They're more like new to the whole idea of playing cards, and this feels like they can be involved more than the normal traditional games.
Yeah, I thought so. It would be the younger, more experimentative generation.
Yes.
So have you thought of going to, say, a university cafeteria or
It's illegal to play cards in universities here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's tough. Yeah,
We did
because
it once, and like, yeah, it's
so
illegal.
that's tough. No, because if they are the ones who are, so forget universities then, but if the younger generation are the ones who are ready to play this game, have you thought about how, like, you need to be where they are? So that's one part of it. And number two, now if university, like an educational institution, is out of the picture because of the rules, then are there any other influencers in their lives, like maybe older siblings who might have the buying power, or parents, and how you can reach them to and encourage them to let their children play this?
That's part of why we went for the cafes and the people who play there, because it's usually the older brothers and the ones who actually make their own decisions. Because if we're trying to target the younger ones, it's gonna be really hard because they will not come to like events unsupervised, and almost all like public educational institutes and public institutes forbid playing cards in their campuses. It's illegal.
Yeah, this is okay.
Tricky.
That makes it tougher.
Yeah.
Because you see how other card games like Uno became such a family name. It would be good to see their case studies and how they did it, but add the culturally relevant part of it as well.
Yes.
This is interesting.
So one thing that I wanted to show you, Saja, that you very much have to think about your innovation curve. So who are going to be your early adopters and whatnot. And I'm sure that you're familiar with this particular graph. Um, but
Yes.
yeah, so ultimately, just map out who do you think is going to be your 2.5% of the population, right? Who are going to be your innovators, your early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. So maybe like your advocates can be, like your ambassadors can be people who benefit from the WASTA system, who believe in your vision. And you don't need that to be like 20,000 people, you may just need 5, and they can lead you through this because it'll lead you through naturally because your early adopters and your early majority, that might be something that Tanvi was playing into, right? The early majority can be people who are adults who sign on to the vision but can influence the late majority, which are younger kids. So like it can help you visualize a lot of like what you're trying to do, and like help map out a timeline for you as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Coupling that with the idea of the tournaments, I think we're onto something here.
Yeah, I think like the tournaments, no one will show up to just an education seminar. That's just not how it's going to be. But if you make a game out of a game, that will be, I think that's the best way forward. So Roger's idea would be the most effective one. And then based off of that, you can make an early hypothesis of who your customer base is going to be and what timeline it's going to, like, you can spread it and plan it out, but ultimately you won't know until you kick it off. So you won't know until you start hosting these tournaments, start partnering with people. And if you don't find cafes or anything to partner with, start it in your backyard. Just invite people to a community space where people can come and it can start with 5 to 10 people. It doesn't have to be huge, but you just need to start. And you could make sure you collect data that whole time. What are people's reactions? What feedback are they giving? How are they playing the game? Is there anything in the game that needs to be adjusted? Are people understanding the narrative? Are they reading the guide first before they play? What games are they playing while using the cards? Stuff like that is going to be really important. You just have to make sure what are the most critical data points for you to measure success, and you will have to change the cards either way. Like it'll just happen based off of your demographics, but you have to decide which cards are which way is going to make the most impact. We have about 5 minutes remaining, but does anyone have any questions or additional ideas about adoptions and strategies for Saja? And I know, Jacob, you are on mute right now, but would love for you to introduce yourself as well.
Okay, hi Shivani.
Hi, Jacob.
Can you?
Yes,
Okay. I want to be sure the background noise is reduced.
it is.
Okay, because I have issues with the connection. So
Yes.
I can ask one of the things to search about our card games.
You were
Okay, so first of all, I actually want how your social media publicity is, and also how is your graphics for the game, because what you bring to people matters. When they can see the picture of what you portray, that also determines how the younger people are actually attracted to things that are more like exciting in a way. Like Ivani said, you could actually start from your backyard to get kids to join you, maybe 5 kids, 10 kids. I think that's a good idea because you have your facility already, and it's just up to you to get other kids to be a part of it. You can start small, you can start in your immediate environment, and before you know, it's going to spread. Um, much as I didn't make it early for the meeting. Uh, and I think time is really fast spent. But I feel that we are be able to, that I said, see kids to come join you. And if they consider it to be exciting and impactful, I'm sure they'll get other kids to join. And before you know it will spread across the whole city. So you just have to start with where you are and with what you have.
So Saja, did you get that? Like part of that?
I think I got the gist of it. Some parts were, but like, thank you very much. I think I got most of it. Yes, and I kind of like the idea that while we're a little like we're not sure how well this would spread, but seeing that people actually see the potential of it kind of is really encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like Jacob's advice on more like engaging the youth especially is going to be very important in carrying this forward. But yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but just parse it out, fragment it out, break it up into pieces, and you can scale it in like a year if you work diligently. I think so. What I'll do for you guys right now, I'll share my screen one more time. So ultimately, I'll share this Google Doc with all of you. If I'll share my advice, Roger, you can share yours as well. But just write your advice and your ideas down for the Valve team, and Valve, you can take this home and use this as maybe a guidance or like some sort of advice for your company. So I hope that this can help you guys like launch this great idea. This is quite a task you're taking.
But you gave us a lot of help. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And we'll keep you updated once things start rolling.
Please do. Yeah, please keep us updated. Because yeah, we would love to see like some of these ideas move forward. That sounds good. I'm gonna stop recording in a little bit, but does anyone have any last thoughts or anything for Valve?
TikTok. Get on TikTok.
It's where all the cool kids are.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. I've been whistling that animatronic song this entire time.
Also, one thing from Valve, if you had one piece of advice that you would want to give our community, what would it be? Either of you can answer.
That's a bit tricky.
Yeah.
I think you guys are doing like this is one of the first communities we came across with this much involvement and engagement, and where you actually engage like in with each project instead of just having the competition, which I personally really respect. And I like how you're working on the engagement, and I really like the forum. I think the forum is a bit hidden. Like it took a lot of effort to actually discover that, and it's a little hard to engage with it because you don't get notified when someone is like engaging with you at all. So for me, I think like with the Facebook group and what you're doing with the video sessions and with the forum, those three can like maybe can find the middle ground that connects everything to everyone.
Yeah.
I think that would be good. And I personally really like your newsletters.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for that helpful feedback. I appreciate it. My question was more about like what general advice would you give to our social entrepreneurs? Like stay true to yourself or stay motivated. Like what would be like a piece of advice that either of you would give as being social entrepreneurs in this field?
That's even more tricky.
Either of you could answer.
Siwar can take this one. I'm done.
Go ahead.
I don't know if I can give this advice now, but maybe the more tries you do to your work is the more you can get better and go for your idea, even if it is not easy to do. I don't know if that's work with me.
No, that's really good.
I think for us, what we learned like in the
Yeah.
past year has been that this is gonna be continuous learning. Like
Yeah.
at each phase, you're gonna have to learn everything again and again and retry. And every time you have to challenge what you think you know and put it to the test. And like you need to be open-minded to realize that maybe you don't know what you think you know, and you need to learn again.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are you ladies are very promoting resilience, which is something that every entrepreneur or leader needs to have. So thank you so much. We have been recording this call, but you'll see this on our YouTube channel. You can refer back to it. If you are stuck with anything, you know where to find us. But we look forward to something recorded. And we hope that this helps at least a little bit. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us. We'll have another video session. Details about that very soon. Have a good one.
Thank you too.
So if you know anyone who would like to participate or would like to host one of these video sessions, just please reach out to me. We would love to just talk to them. But thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.